Hey, Print Hustlers, Bruce from Printavo, Simple Shop Management Software. We've got a very special guest that we're going to be joining us today, Allie Banholzer out of Wear Your Spirit Warehouse. Really excited to have her, but more importantly, Allie's actually going to be joining us for PrintHustlers Conf 2020, which we're going to do in person, but because of everything that's happening, we're going to do a really great 2 day event, just some high quality content, high quality shop owners to be able to tell their stories and ups and downs. And I wanted to grab 5-10 minutes with Allie just to be able to check in and learn a little bit more about what she's going to be talking about at PrintHustlers Conf, which again is July 23rd and 24th, and we'll leave a link down below so that you guys can subscribe to that and register. But a lot of stuff there. Allie, thanks so much for being able to join us.
Thanks for having me.
You've got a really strong background and how it involves and has changed your business that you wanted to be able to share, which has created some very unique resilience, I feel like, for you. If you could just dive a little bit into that.
Sure. So, my business has definitely morphed several times over the course of 14, now 15 years. Started out in a completely different industry, had a business partner. That industry went all digital, and the industry tanked in 2008 with the housing crunch and all of that. And at that time, I took the equipment I had and said, what could I do with it? And it was printing banners and things that way. And then that morphed into adding silk screening, adding embroidery. And so that was kind of the first phase of doing a real business pivot to keep my business viable. Probably the one that involves more of my husband and the journey we went through. So I originally started my business. I was a military spouse. My husband was an Air Force officer. He's a pilot. And we have two daughters. And when they were very young, 6 months and 3 years old, I loved being a stay-at-home mom, but I needed some challenges and some interaction with adults. And that's when I started the business. I started it at home. It was a hobby. It provided us some fun money for doing vacations and things that way. And then it grew. It outgrew my house. In 2010, I moved it into commercial space, and we were going like gangbusters and growing. During that time period, became a pilot on Air Force One. And then in 2014, he became the commander of Air Force One and the 14th presidential pilot of the United States, which was really a high for us. It was a dream for him. He says it was like winning the lottery. We were on cloud nine. Great family, beautiful children, dream jobs. My business was going strong. And then one Saturday morning in May, we were standing around drinking coffee, and Dave dropped in front of me and had a grand mal seizure. Daughters. We called 911. 2 days later, he had 9 hours of brain surgery, and we were told he had 14 months to live. So I
Wow.
kind of explain it. Yeah, it was pretty traumatic, very sudden. Obviously, I get a little choked up talking about it. And I kind of describe it to people. It was like living in a snow globe. We lived in this idyllic, perfect world where everything was beautiful. And then one morning, somebody picked up that snow globe and shook it. All the pieces were still there, but nothing landed where that used to be. And it was no longer an idyllic scene. Ultimately, Dave lived for 28 months. He passed away in November of 2016. During that time period, I shut down my commercial space. I brought the business home, and I kept two employees that I trusted. Not only I trusted everybody to be in my home. It wasn't so much as it was they were really going to be an eyewitness to this horrible disease that my husband had, and I needed really close people that could run the business and be okay in that environment. So for the 28 months we ran the business out of the house, I didn't do anything to grow the business. I just simply maintained those customers that I had. Then, like I said, he passed in November of 2016. And I took a little bit of time to grieve and get my feet under me and decide what it was I wanted to do. So my background is actually in criminology. I was a criminologist for police departments prior to having kids and things that way. It's a career field I could have gone back into. So there was a big decision there. Do I want to go back into that, or do I want to now take what was a really kind of a hobby, fun money business and grow it to make it support my family and be my livelihood.
Hmm.
I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted it to become our income, support us, and go forward. So in April of 17, I moved the business back out into commercial space and started hustling to grow the business. We rapidly outgrew that space within a year, and we moved to our location now. I now have 6 employees, and we're growing the business. And before COVID hit, we were on a fast trajectory up. Now with COVID, we're steady. We did pivot again to adapt to what's going on here. We're making masks in-house we've got a laser that cuts, and then of course embroidery equipment. So that's kind of how we pivoted with that. And then we also picked up and started doing the Here for Good campaign that many printers are doing. Not our original idea, but it was proposed to us to do, and we hopped on board with that. So between those two things, we have not grown anymore during this time frame, but we have maintained. We haven't lost. So
Sure.
just working through it, pivoting. I didn't sit back and say, okay, well, we'll wait until we can open back up and things that way. Instead, I said, what can I do to be an essential business, ethically, morally responsible in our social distancing and things that way, but still be able to produce and manufacture.
Well, first, of course, thank you to your family for your service and everything around that. And that first pivot to going back into a commercial space from your home, I mean, I can only imagine the amount of mental kind of hurdles and maze that you're navigating there. How did you do it? Like, walk me through when you were in that moment, what that was like. I mean, because you're working with customers, you don't want to, I guess, have anybody leave customer wise. You have to probably start hiring people. People want to gravitate towards a natural leader too. How were you able to do that? And what I find interesting about that is because I think that strength helps then others that are either going through another situation or a difficult time too, to be able to take maybe some of the ways that you approached it.
We all have this mental dialogue that goes through our heads about failure and risk and all of that. And I had a voice in my head because even when the business was a hobby, I'd run up against hurdles and things that way. And my husband would be like, why do you want to do this? Like, you don't have to do this. Why do you want to put yourself through this? And for me, it's the mental challenge to be able to overcome those hurdles. That's kind of my personality. Don't tell me I can't do something, because you tell me I can't do something, that's the first thing I'm going to go do. So some of it was just that fortitude, but I did have that going through my head. And then when you're grieving that loss, that voice gets loud. If I'm the owner of the business and I'm running the business, I have that control. I can structure it in a way that I can still be with my girls and help my girls. So that was just some of the mental dialogue that was going on. The actual nuts and bolts of it was all in coming up with systems, procedures, taking the 2 employees that I did have, plugging them in where they fit the best. Neither one of them were salespeople. Taking the people I had, making sure I had a good spot for them, knowing my personality and what I was good at, and putting myself into that role, and then hiring for those areas where there were gaps. I'm a numbers person. As a criminologist, it's a lot of data analysis and things that way. So that was my natural niche, to be able to look at, profit margins and revenues and pricing grids and all of those things that go into our business. My biggest thing was I needed an outside sales rep to go do the sales. Sales is not my natural go-to. That was the part of working on the business that I really focused on. And then, of course, being as small as we were and trying to grow, I spent a lot of time in production and being in the business, as they say.
The emphasis on process is really interesting, especially with 2 people. I usually find it's something that people encounter when they hit, 10, 15 people, and it becomes a strong problem. But creating that early on, I mean, it's just huge. Granted, the process now is probably not going to be the process in a couple of years, but at least it's the foundation. It's your basement to the home that you build on top. The outside sales rep, that's an interesting thing, because a lot of people, when they hire the first outside sales rep, they got a lot of questions. They may make a mistake for the first few times. Maybe some of the nuts and bolts on that. How did you plan out handling commission for that role? How did you maybe find that person? Did it work out?
We probably hire a lot different than a lot of people. I can't pay huge salaries. I don't always need full-time people. And so being a military spouse myself and knowing that network and knowing how difficult it is for military spouses to find jobs that fit with their lifestyle as well, we really have niched in on that area. And so when I put out a call or an ad to a help wanted, rather than focusing on salary and focusing on how much they can earn and things that way, I focus on the intrinsic benefits that we can offer, which is flexibility in scheduling, time off, if you only want to work part-time and only work while your kids are at school so you're home when they get home, those kinds of things. And look where we can add benefit that you can't necessarily find in another job, a regular 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever it is. And then we seek out those individuals that are looking for those kinds of benefits. And we train. I was lucky. I hired my outside sales rep. She's still with me today. She was a military spouse. When she started out, she was no commission, straight hourly. She worked part-time. She worked 20 hours a week. And that's what we needed. I didn't have the money or the ability to do full-time benefits and all of that. Now, as we've grown, she's grown with us. Her job has grown, and I can offer her more and, the benefits and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think if you can look at the intrinsic and non-monetary in hiring, two things happen. One, you get a different niche of employee that wants to be there because of those intrinsic benefits, not because of money, and you build loyalty. And it helps with your culture overall, because now you're surrounded with people that aren't there just to earn a dollar. They're there as part of a family.
That's awesome. You almost took you took like the shortcomings that you couldn't make happen into positives for it to find the right fit, which is really great. And I think people definitely do undervalue that flexibility aspect as well. Could be working from home, and like you said, time off when you need. So that's really great. There's a lot of other questions that I wrote down that I'm gonna ask, but I'm gonna pull those up in PrintHustlers Conf. Allie, thanks so much for being able to join us for a couple minutes today. I know you guys are busy, I'm sure, with a lot of masks and here for good campaigns. If you guys want to listen into more, be able to join us at PrintHustlers Conf this year, 2020. It's going to be online. It's going to be free and available. We're going to have quite a few shops in there this year. It's going to be really exciting. July 23rd, 24th. We'll drop a link down below so you can subscribe. We'll see you guys there.